Hi, this is Dr. Collins Osekranton. Today is one of the beginning of a new day. Um, I've already informed our viewers on YouTube that this year we are going to start a series of interviews with great people we have in this country and beyond. Today I have with me one of the best doctors in the country. In fact, she is the only known pediatric radiologist in the country. She works at Ridge Hospital and she's the CEO of Run Medical and Health System. Doc, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Her
having
name
me.
is Dr. Rosemond Aboagye, and today I am pleased that I have her as my guest, and she's going to tell us all there is about her. And also, we want to know how she has been able to navigate from infancy to where she is. I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of people, especially the youth. Young girls, you cannot afford to miss this interview with Dr. Boaji. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you so much. In fact, having read your book, having heard your story, I felt that there is no better person to interview for this session than you. So you are my number one on the list for today's session. I'm so pleased to have you.
I'm honored.
All right. So my first question is, who is Dr. Boaji?
Wow. I nearly did not see that coming.
Okay.
So I'm Rosemond Aboagye, Dr. Rosemond Aboagye. I am a mother. I'm a doctor, a pediatric radiologist. I'm a young entrepreneur, and I'm a role model to a lot of people that I mentor. Yes.
Okay.
So
All right. Wow. So Dr. Boaji is a role model. She's a mentor, a coach, a doctor, and also a mother,
yes, and an author.
an author, and a CEO.
Yeah, if you
Wow.
would say that.
Wow. In fact, somebody is wondering, how did you achieve all this? So can you share with us your background and how you navigated from the beginning of your life to where you are now?
Thank you very much. It's been quite a journey, and for me, looking back over the years, sometimes it is almost unbelievable how far I have come. I'm the first of five children. I was born in Jamestown. I'm
Wow.
100% Ghana, so
Wow.
I was born in the slums of Jamestown, but I grew up in Latebi Okoshi and in
Okay.
Kolegono.
Wow.
And growing up as the first of five children in a family where we did not have much, I spent quite a lot of my time helping my mother. My mom was a petty trader all of her life. She used to sell cooked food, mostly Kenkey. So I remember that from as young as 7, 8 years, I used to help her prepare Kenkey and to sell by the roadside. And that was how my my formative years were. I really loved school, but because of the situation at home, I spent most of my time out of school preparing and selling Kenkey. And I remember so well when I was in class 5, my favorite teacher, Mr. Ishen, God bless his kind heart. One day I was behind the Kenkey one Saturday evening, and I saw him coming with his wife. They were coming to buy Kenkey. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't want my class teacher to see me selling Kenkey. And so I ran away.
Wow.
I ran away and I went to hide, and he stood there for a long time waiting for the Kenkey seller to come. And
Wow.
I never showed up. Then I was just 9 years old in class 5, and I couldn't imagine my teacher realizing that this is what I did outside of school. Although I was one of the best students in school, it really mattered to me what people thought of me. But I think from then on, I've come a long way. And so most of my growing up years, I was either selling Kenkey or I was in school. And I remember very well when I was in JHS. Those times it used to be called JSS. Yeah. So in my final year, all of my mates were going for extra classes, but of course I couldn't go. When I came home from school, I would have to help prepare Kenkey and then go sell by the roadside. And I had this friend of mine, let me call her Abigail.
Yeah.
She would come every evening after classes and sit by me behind the Kenkey, and then she would teach me the things that she had been taught in extra classes. And so it was one day that her father found her with me. And he was very upset and told her never to come teach me again.
Wow.
Yeah. And coincidentally, Abigail's mother was working at work.
Okay.
So when our results came, she asked for my index number so that she could check.
Yes.
You know, those days, it took a while before the results would come to the
Yes.
school. So if you had connection, somebody could check for
the
you.
results, yes.
Yeah, so she took my index number, and the day she bought the results, she sent her daughter for me that I want to see your friend. Go get her. And so I went and I sat in the hall waiting for the mother to come out and tell me my results. And I was afraid. I was a bit scared because I had met her husband a few months back and he had told his daughter not to associate with me. And as I sat there waiting for the woman to come out of the room, her husband came first. And you can just imagine, I was so scared. But he looked at me and he was like, isn't that the Kenkey seller's daughter? And then his daughter was like, yes. And he was like, hey, he said it in Chi. Hey, you know, one baby.
Wow.
And how come she got so many
all ones?
Yes. And that was one of the turning moments in my life. I realized that it did not matter what other people thought of you, what you thought of yourself, and the plan you have is the most important thing. Once you stuck to it and employ everything you have, all the arsenals in your toolbox, you would get to your destination.
Wow.
Yeah.
In fact, having heard your story and also read the story, I think it's the same thing I read from the book. So you were a Kenkey seller.
Yes, I was.
Your mom was selling Kenkey.
Yes.
And you were supporting your mom to sell Kenkey.
All the way to university and medical school.
Wow. At what age did you start selling Kenkey?
I must have been about 7 years old.
7 years?
Yes, in Kolegono. There was this very popular wache joint called Barcelona Wache.
Okay.
And I used to sell right next to Barcelona Wache.
Wow.
So those who know Kolegono very well, on the Papillon Road, I'm sure people know.
How did the Kenkey seller, how did you navigate as a Kenkey seller all the way through medical school to specialist course, now the only known pediatric radiologist in Ghana? This is remarkable.
Well, yes, but I think that I got a lot of help. I was very determined. I remember that as early as 5 years old, I wanted to be a doctor, but my relatives had told me that even as young as 2 years, I always would say that I would be a doctor. And for me, back then, when I was just about 5 years old, it was me seeing doctors in the hospital, the way they went about their work. It was beautiful to me. I felt it was really noble. But when I was about 9 years, I started reading, and there were a couple of books I read that really whipped up my appetite for the profession. I read this book called Every Woman.
Every Woman, okay.
Yes, and then I
remember that book.
Yes, it's a very popular gynecological book. And then I read What Every Boy Should Know, What Every Girl Should Know. It was also written by one Dr. Green, and I really was amazed at the things I was reading, and I was like, no, I want to go into this field. So that reinforced my desire to be a doctor. And I remember when I used to live in Kolegona, I would walk about 2 kilometers every day with my younger brothers to school.
You were walking to school?
Yes, I was walking
2 kilometers every morning?
Every morning. Every morning.
Wow.
And when I was in class 5, I was 9 years then. So my brother, the first brother must have been 6, and the second one would be 4 or 3 years. And I would hold their hands on either side and would walk all the way from Kolegono to Latebiokoshi. And we always went through the hospital and would always invariably pass by the medical school buses.
Yes.
And every time I passed by them or they passed by me, I would say in my heart that one day I'm going to sit in this bus. I'm going to be a medical student, and I'm going to be a doctor.
Wow.
And so that desire and passion was there.
Wow.
Anytime I hit a roadblock, anytime things looked that they were impossible, I just kept that end in mind that I was going to be a doctor. And I would always pray to God and tell him that I didn't know how he was going to do it, but this is what I want, and so he should help me. And one of my favorite verses growing up, it was even in the book, for the Lord God will help me, therefore will I not be confounded. Therefore have I set my face like a flint.
Wow.
And I know that I will not be ashamed. So anytime the road became too tough, too rough, I would go back to God and I'll remind him of his promises. And that was one of the things that kept me going.
In fact, you are a living scripture. In fact, you have never been ashamed. And I believe God has great things ahead for you. So we know that in our society, doctors breed doctors. In other words, doctors train their children to be doctors. Lawyers train their children to be lawyers. But you were a Kenkey seller.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. Was there any doctor in your family?
No, there wasn't. And I remember very well when I went for my medical school interview, the panel, they asked me, do you know any doctor? Do you have any
Yes,
doctors in
that's a
your
common
family?
interview, a medical interview
And
question.
I told them that no, the only doctor I knew was my pastor's wife.
Oh, okay. So you knew your pastor's wife was a doctor?
Yes, she was an ophthalmologist.
Okay.
Yes, she was an ophthalmologist.
Okay.
But I think the interview went well because I was taken.
So you are the first doctor in your family?
Yes, I was privileged to be the first doctor in my family. I have a younger brother who is a doctor as well. He's an obstetrician gynecologist currently in Australia. And I have a few other cousins who are doctors.
Oh, because of you?
Well, hopefully, yes. But they did come after me.
Wow, this is so inspiring. I know the road has not been easy. From being a Kenkey seller, your mother is a Kenkey seller, no doctor, the financial difficulties you have gone through because you have to be selling Kenkey at the age of 7. What are some of the obstacles you encountered, and how did you overcome these obstacles?
Thank you very much. So I'm sure you know without even thinking twice that I did have a lot of financial difficulties.
Yes.
And God came through for me in ways that I never imagined. I remember when I went to secondary school, in the beginning it was good. My dad provided everything the very first term. But then from the second term, he told me that things were really bad and I had to stay home until he had money to take me back to school. But I didn't accept that. I couldn't imagine my friends being in school and me just staying home and selling Kenkey. So that second term of
that is senior high school.
Yes, SS1. Yes, second term of SS1.
Your dad said you should stay home.
Yes,
because there was no money to pay your fees.
Yes.
Wow.
And that day, it was one of the saddest days of my life. But after I had finished choir, I wiped my tears. And then I had some money. I used to go to church. I was very vibrant in church. So
you were a church girl?
Yes.
Was it
because I've always been a church girl.
Was it because of the Kenkey?
No. They were two separate things, actually.
Okay.
So people from church had given me some money that day. So I gave it to my mom and asked her to use it to take care of the younger siblings. And I took just enough to take me from Kaneshi Market, Cape Coast Station to Agri Memorial. I went to Ghana National, so you take a bus to Agri Memorial and then you take a taxi from there to Ghana National. But that day I had just enough to take me to Agri, and then I walked the rest of the way to Ghana National. I didn't have anything.
You walked?
I walked from Agri Memorial to my school in Ghana National. I didn't have anything to carry. There was no food, nothing.
So you went to school without any food, no pocket money?
No.
Wow, that means you're really determined.
Yes. I didn't see any other way. And so I went to school like that. I would eat dining hall food. Sometimes when I was hungry, my friends would feed me. I had teachers who were really kind. They were running all kinds of private classes, and they all allowed me to join for free.
Wow.
Yes, I was really privileged. God brought a lot of people my way who helped me. They are not blessed people. We are just helped people. And so all these people helped me. Some encouraged me. Sometimes I was really discouraged, and God would always bring somebody to say a word of encouragement to me. And so that very term, I was start to go home for fees.
Wow.
Yes. And when I was start to go home, I knew that if I went back home, we used to live in Latebiokoshi with my mom. if I went back home, there were chances that I would never be
Come
able
back.
to come back because
You
even
were told to stay
yes, and
and
I
you
went.
went, and now they have
Yes.
asked you to come home. Okay.
Yeah. So I decided that I wasn't going to go home, but my dad was living in Konongo at the time.
Okay.
So I borrowed money from one of my friends, and then I picked a trotro from Cape Coast. And to go to Konongo, apparently I had to go through Kumasi.
Kumasi.
I must have been probably about 13 or 14 years.
Wow.
And it was the first time I had taken a journey like that too. I traveled from, we were started after school, so I left Cape Coast around 5 or 6. And we traveled to Kumasi. I got to Kumasi around 9 p.m. And when I got to the station, I was told the last bus to Konongo had left.
Oh.
And so I needed to sleep in Kumasi and go to Konongo the next day. I was like, it can't happen. I don't have anybody in Kumasi. I didn't know anybody.
No money for hotel.
No, nothing.
Or guest house.
And so the bus was there. It had not taken off yet. So I ran to the bus and I told the people in the bus, I need help.
Wow.
I have to go see my dad. I don't know anybody in Kumasi. Can you please let me perch on this bus? And of course, they allowed me onto the bus, and finally I got home to my dad in Konongo. It was nearly midnight when I got there, and I had not eaten that night. And so my dad was like, well, it's good you are here, but I don't have anything. I don't even have food for you to eat.
Really?
Yes, it was that bad. And so the change I had from the money I borrowed from my friend, I gave it to my dad, and then he went to get some provisions for me. And I took a little.
Your dad took the little money you had?
Yeah, the change.
The change from the transport?
Yeah.
To go and buy money for you to eat?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And I was there for probably about 5 or 6 days. And in the time that I was there, the only thing I ate were seed yams.
Wow.
You know, my dad was a farmer, and so he was he was basically a rice farmer, but he did other crops. So at that time, he had a lot of seed yams in the room he was preparing for the next planting season. And that was the only edible thing at home. So every day I would boil some of the seed yam with salt. And that was all I ate.
Wow.
That was all I ate for the whole 5 days that I was there. And on the 5th day, my mom showed up. And she had sent somebody to school to visit, and the person did not find me. And so she figured that either I was lost or I had gone to my dad's place. And she was told that I had been sacked for fees. So she had borrowed some money.
And there was no mobile phone at that time?
No, there wasn't. Even if there was, I doubt if my mom would have owned one. And so she brought the money, and that was how I was able to go to the second term of my first year in Ghana National. But then again, God came through for me. That same term, I got 2 scholarships.
Wow.
Yes, one from Cocoa Board, and then another one from International Central Gospel Church. And that was one of the biggest blessings. I eventually had to choose one. So I chose the ICGC scholarship. And from that time till I finished school, I never had to worry about school fees. Everything was catered for. And that was how I finished secondary school.
Wow.
Yeah.
This story is so inspiring. In fact, you have been through a lot. But just listening to the story, the struggles, being a Kenkey seller yourself, your mom is a Kenkey seller, no mentor, quote unquote, there was no medical doctor in your family, and you wanting to be a doctor. What was your inspiration? What inspired you so much that with all these obstacles, you still fought to be a doctor? What was your inspiration? What was the reason?
Thank you very much. One of the things that I held on to so dearly was the word of God. And anytime I read God's word and every promise that he had outlined, I took it personal.
Okay.
And I would hold God to his promise. I was like, you said this, you said you never leave me or forsake me. You said you be you be my provider. And I held on to those, and I always reminded God about those promises. So that unshakable faith in what God has said concerning me in his word was my number one ally. And then also I had a lot of people I listened to. Dr. Mensah Otagbol, I listened to him all the time when I was growing up. and his messages were very inspiring. I lived with them. There were other motivational speakers. Those times there was one Mr. Day to me.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, and I listened to him a lot. There was one Mr. J. Prophet in the uni who used to talk about the word of God, and especially concerning relationships and marriage. And so there were several men of God. My own church, then called Bethel Faith Missions, I had pastors and elders in the church who taught me about the faith and encouraged me. And everywhere I turned, in books, on TV, I saw people who were doing great things, and they always inspired me. I'm like, if these people have been able to make so much difference in their countries, their families, and in their lives, I can do it too. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. So it means even though there was no, quote unquote, any mentor to look up to, no person in your family to look up to, but there were these people, books, and other people, radio, TVs, that you look up to.
Yes.
Wow, that is so inspiring. Just having listened to your story, can you tell us, was there a turning point in your life journey that made a significant impact in your success story?
Well, there have been several of them, but the one that really, really shook me and changed my worldview the most was something that happened in my private life.
Okay.
And well, so I'm a mother of three. I used to be married before. I'm a divorcee now, and losing my marriage was one of the hardest things that happened to me. I mean, for me, even as a young girl, I had always strived for excellence in everything I did, and marriage was one of them. I remember praying to God when I was as little as 12 years, and I'll tell God that, God, I want to be an excellent wife. Teach me how to be a wife. Teach me how to be a mother. And I spent quite a bit of my formative years learning how to be that person. And so marriage to me was very important. And when I realized that despite all the effort and all the preparation, the marriage still failed, it was really a big blow. And it was easily a place to have given up on all the things that I had believed in. But you know, sometimes the things that do not kill you, they only make you stronger.
Strong. Wow.
Yes, and so that setback was really a catapult. Sometimes when the fall is so bad, it's like, you know, a catapult.
Yes.
Before you launch the stone, you have to draw it back. And sometimes the further you draw it back, the further you are able to launch that stone.
Yes.
And so it was really bad, but some way, somehow, it catapulted me into the next phase of my life. And if I had to do it all over again, the things I have learned and the lessons that I'm equipped with today, there was no way I would have learned them in the classroom. It was only in the crucible of an abusive marriage and then the victory of coming out of it alive that would have taught me those lessons.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. I think it's more of a personal aspect, which I will not want to go deeper into.
Thank you.
But I think it's a story that needs to be heard by all people, even those who believe divorce has probably caused the end of their life.
Yes.
But sorry about that anyway.
It's okay.
So my next question to you, Dr. Aboagye, will be, with all the stories you are telling us, do you think there was any quality or skills you possess that has contributed to all these achievements we are talking about today?
Well, I'll try to answer it, but I'm sure the people that live with me probably would be able to tell a better story. But for me, I remember very well that I had this inner determination that I was going to make it no matter what the odds were. I was just focused and determined. So focus and determination were one of the most important things. I had my eye on the goal and I would not look anywhere. And I think the grace of God helped me. It protected me from all those things that could easily have derailed me from the path I had set for myself. There were temptations. I mean, I was a young girl. Even back then, when I was very young, I was still beautiful, and a lot of men approached me. People would offer that, oh, me person me know you know, I'm going to take care of you. But some way, somehow, I was so convinced that I could do it with
Without
God
them.
and with my determination, without having to compromise my standards. And it was just by the grace of God, because things were really, really difficult. And then also, you know, we depend on God, but really God uses human beings.
Yes.
And so I was privileged to come across people. People are one of the most important resources you can ever have. People who were willing to help, people who believed in my dream, my capabilities, and total strangers. They helped me. And I think that I'm just a product of grace. And
Wow.
many times when I came to that point where it was easy for me to have given up, then God just works a miracle.
Wow.
Yes, and so it was just one miracle after the other. And so now I've come to the conclusion that I couldn't have been just lucky. It was just a path that God has set for me. It was a training ground. And maybe now is the time for me to use my experiences to impact others.
Wow. So I understand from what you said that you were determined, you were focused, and there was a bit of resilience. You didn't want to give
and
up.
a lot of hard work
Hard
too.
work.
And sometimes, like the passage said, you have to set your face like a flint. Some of the things are very uncomfortable. I remember when I was in first year of the university, and I didn't have a place to stay.
Wow. I was going to ask you that story because I read it from your book.
Yes. So in my second year, I didn't have a place to stay, but I was still determined to continue. And so in the beginning, I would travel from our family house at Latebiokoshi to Legon every day for lectures. But then when I closed lectures, I wouldn't go home immediately. The money that was given me was barely enough for transport. So I was hungry all the time.
Wow.
And I'm like, I can't live this way. I'll disappear. And so every day after lectures, I would go to the female hostels and I would knock on every single door. And my story was always the same.
Wow.
Please, I need a place to pitch. Do you have a place?
So you did not even have a place to sleep when you were in medical school, the university?
No, in the university, second year of the university.
Wow.
Yes. So I did that for a couple of weeks. I started from Saba Annex, the female hostel, and I worked my way from there to Legon Hall. And so one day I was in Legon Hall and I knocked on the door. And luckily for me, there was a medical student who was just going for vacation. You know, those days, the medical students, their timetable was different from the regular students. And so she was like, okay, I'm going for vacation for 3 weeks, so you can stay here for 3 weeks. And so I had a bed for 3 weeks, but 3 weeks came very fast. And then she came back and I didn't have a place to stay. But I was determined not to give up. So I left my things in the room. In the mornings, I'll bath, I'll change, I'll go for lectures. In the evenings, I'll come and bath. Then I'll go to the men's and Sabbath dining hall. I would have group discussions with my friends. And then when it was late and everybody else left, I'll put my head on the table.
Wow. So you were sleeping?
Yes, I was sleeping in the dining hall.
Dining hall?
Yes.
At the university?
Yes, Sabah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, at Sabah Hall, dining hall. And I did that for the rest of the semester. But I was determined not to make that journey every day. It was too tiring. I couldn't study with my friends. I was always hungry. And so I felt that what I did was the best thing I could have done under the circumstances.
Wow. I think now that you have your own home, you should have 5 beds.
You can only sleep on one bed.
You should have 5 beds in your bedroom. You put one leg here, one leg there, and sleep. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. In fact, your story is so touching. Like when I listen to you and all the things you went through, somebody who's watching will be thinking, is this true? Wow. In fact, this is I think in your book you made mention of one time you got sick and you had to be admitted at the hospital. Can you brief us on that?
Yes, thank you. So that happened in the first term of my second year in the university. And at the time, I still didn't have accommodation, but this time I became more radical in my approach. So I was officially assigned to Volta Hall.
Okay.
And so in that first term of my second year, I found a room in Volta Hall where there was a bed that had not been assigned. So I moved in.
Nobody asked you to move in?
No, I just asked the people, is the bed? They like, oh, it's not been assigned. I'm like, oh, really? I need a place to sleep.
You were more aggressive.
Yes, I moved in.
Wow.
But when I moved in, I also knew that it was just a matter of time
because
before
the owner would
assign somebody to it. So I was just praying that they would forget about that bed. And then when I was praying about that, I suddenly took ill and I was admitted at Legon Hospital. And the doctors then said it was cellulitis of my left leg. And it was pretty bad. At a point, they had to call my parents to come for me.
You're a doctor, so somebody is...
Now I know better. Okay, so cellulitis is an infection. You know, we have our skin and then we have the subcutaneous layer.
Yes.
It's also part of the skin, under the skin. So when you have an infection that affects the skin and the subcutaneous layer, we call that cellulitis. It can affect any part of your body, but for me, it affected my left leg and it became pretty bad. And my dad was called in to come for me. So he came to pick me up with a car and I was admitted at Akuse Government Hospital. But I took a turn for the worse. Sometimes the infection can move from the site into your bloodstream. We call that septicemia. So that happened to me. It went into my bloodstream. I started breaking down my red blood cells. We call that intravascular hemolysis. And at a point, my urine was like coke. Wow. We call that black water fever. And when you are at that point, you can have several complications. Your whole system can shut down, including your vital organs. And so I was at that state, and suddenly I went off for days. Honestly, I have to ask my father.
So you went into coma?
Yes, I went off for days. And I didn't remember what happened when I was off.
Oh, but you mean you were in comatose?
Yes. Wow. I was just lying there unresponsive, nothing. Wow. For days.
Wow.
And when I came to, I was singing.
Wow.
And when I opened my eyes, it was a female ward, not a very big ward, but it was a female ward. And when I came to, everybody in the ward was watching me.
Wow.
And they were crying.
Wow.
And they were like, we thought you were not going to make it.
Wow.
And that was the day I started to recover.
Wow.
And so I think after about a week, I managed to convince the doctor who was taking care of me that I needed to go back to school.
Wow.
I needed to make the selection for medical school. So she discharged me, although I was not very well. And I went back to school. And it was at that point that I decided to become more aggressive in my search for accommodation. So with my very swollen, very painful leg, I walked about 1.5 kilometers from Volta Hall to my house mistress's.
Even in that condition?
Yes. I walked to her home. I wanted to ask her for help. When I got there, she wasn't there. But I met a house help. And I told her house help that my name is Rosemond Hammond. Then I was Hammond.
Okay.
And I'm affiliated to Volta Hall. I'm very sick. Look at my leg. It's so swollen and it's hard for me to walk, and I have to go to lectures, and I don't have a bed. I don't have a place to stay. So please tell your madam that I need help. That was a Saturday, and the following Monday, I was summoned to the house mistress's office, and I got my official accommodation. And so one of the things that experience taught me is that sometimes you just need to ask for help. When you need help, ask for it. The worst that would happen is that the person would say no to you, but then you could just get what you are asking for.
Wow, this is so inspiring.
Yeah.
So now this is back in medical school or before medical school?
Before medical school.
So how did you become the only pediatric radiologist in the country? And how? I mean, even though we know you've gone to medical school, after medical school, what inspired you to even specialize and become a radiologist?
Thank you very much. So when I was after medical, I went to med school because I wanted to be a gynecologist, obstetrician gynecologist.
Okay. So you wanted to be a gynecologist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think all of us at a point. I also wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Oh, okay. So life happens, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't until my first year in house job that I got introduced to radiology. And I'm like, oh, this sounds really exciting. I love what they do. I really wish I could be a part of that fraternity. So suddenly I was faced with the two options, whether to pursue radiology or ops and Ghana. And I took it to God in prayer.
Okay.
And the other thing I did was I told God that I was going to do 1 year of ops and gynae at Ridge Hospital as a medical officer. And I would convince myself that really I did not want to pursue it as a career anymore. And so I worked at Ridge for 1 year in ops and gynae. It was an amazing year. It was difficult. I learned a lot. I remember being heavily pregnant and doing like 70 years in a day.
Whoa.
It was really exciting. But then at the end of the year, I'm like, okay, I liked it, but I don't think I want to do this for the rest of my life. You know, it took a lot of time, and I began raising a family, and the kind of vision I had for my family, the kind of mom and wife I wanted to be. It would have been great to be an obstetrician gynecologist, but my family was a calling that I was not ready to compromise on at all. And so I made the decision to go into radiology, but I think really that it was all guided by God. And so I entered my radiology program. It also did not come easy at the beginning. And I remember very well when I started, I just had my second child.
Okay.
And so I was like, I told my boss that I just had a baby. 2 weeks after I had a baby, then I started the program. So I was like, I don't think I can start immediately. I need to finish my maternity leave. And at the time, my bosses were not very happy about it. They wanted me to come. Otherwise, I would not be able to write my first year exam with my mates. And it worried me a lot. So I was home for just 1 month and I came back. I'm so sorry I left my son so early.
Wow.
But then even when I came back, I was able to catch up very quickly. There was this amazing woman. She's a destiny helper. She's a Canadian. She was a neuroradiologist. At the time, she was in our department in Kolibu, and she was doing some consultancy work, and she used to teach us.
Okay.
And I loved her teaching. I was amazed, and I just loved whatever she taught us. I was so much in love with radiology. And she also loved with the students equally. And so when she went back, she created an opportunity for some of us to go have what you call an exchange or observership program. And at the time that it was our turn to go, there were about 17 residents.
Wow.
And there was a slot for 2 people. And we're told that automatically the senior resident was getting a slot. So there was 1 slot left. And I had prayed to God severally that God, if this is in line with your plan for my life, let me be the one that get that slot. I remember walking through the streets of Mamprobi at dawn, praying all the time. Yes, I prayed
That's about for the slot.
Yes, I prayed about it a lot. And so the day to choose who would go came. And what my group decided to do was to put blank pieces of paper. We fold it.
Yeah, to ballot.
Yeah, to ballot. And then so there were 16 blank pieces of paper and 1 with a yes on it.
Whoa.
And they mixed it all together. And
so you have to choose one.
Everybody would pick one.
Wow.
And so after like 5 or 6 people had gone to pick, I went and I put my hand in it.
And you chose the yes?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So you can see God's hand. And that is how I got the observership slot to Canada. I went with my senior resident then, Dr. Jackson, and I remember telling him that, Dr. Jackson, this place that we have come, there's like an interview. We have to put our best foot forward. So like we really worked hard. Even when they gave assignment to their own residents, we are not supposed to be part, but we'll do it. And I'm like, you never know where this opportunity would lead. And so when we came back, we applied for fellowship.
Okay.
And God being so good, we got it. I actually got 2 fellowships. But
wow.
Yes, the pediatric radiology and then neuroradiology. But eventually, because of family issues, I had to forgo the neuroradiology and come back. So that was how I became the first pediatric.
Wow.
So you know, it is not me. It must have been a divine hand. Yeah.
So right now, as we speak, the whole Ghana, you are the only pediatrics radiologist.
As far as
as you know.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so inspiring. In fact, before I go on to ask you something significant, which probably will be my last but 1 question, tell us about RAN. You're also a CEO. How did it start, RAN?
Well, thank you
Rand
very much.
Medical
Rand Medical Imaging and
and
Health
Health
Systems.
Systems.
Yes. So back when I was working in Kolibu, I used to work in the hospital and in various private places around Kolibu.
Okay.
And many, many times I saw very sick people come from Kasoa and its environment, some as far as Winneba. They would come to Kolibu for diagnosis. And sometimes they were so critically ill that I would have to pick a phone and call my colleagues in Kolibu and tell them that I have a patient who's really bad. I can't send her back. So I'm referring her to you. And I sat down, I'm like, these people in Kasoa and Winneba, they also need specialist radiology care. So for them to have to come all the way, take transport, suffer the inconvenience, why don't I just set up a place like that here in Kasoa? And that is how that vision was born.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. This is so amazing. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about RAN, and definitely we will talk more about that later, maybe in
Thank
another
you.
series.
Okay.
But now my last question to you is, Dr. Aboagye, with all the things you have been through, the stories and all, what will you tell the youth? The youth.
Thank you very much. And so, for every young person, boy or girl out there watching me, your story may be similar to mine. It may even be different, but some way, somehow, you have a lesson to pick from my story. It doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter the circumstances you find yourself faced with. You have a dream. Everybody should, if you don't have a dream, please go and dream one. And don't be afraid to dream as big as you want. Because no matter how big your dream is, with determination, with perseverance and faith in God and good human relations, because God doesn't come down to help us, He uses people. And so you use every tool in your life toolbox to get your destination. And irrespective of the situation, if you are determined to get there, trust me, you will get there. That finish line, you cross it. It doesn't matter whether you run towards it, whether you crawl towards it, whether you go on all fours. But if you are determined to cross that finish line, you will cross it.
Wow. CEO, thank you. Thank you so much. In fact, it's such an inspiring story. I know this is the beginning of something big, and it's not going to be our first and last. We'll definitely meet and talk more again. But until then, thank you so much.
Thank you for
this
having
session.
me. And thank you to all our viewers.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, viewers. Today's story has been very inspiring. If you think it's something that somebody needs to hear, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. We have more packages for you. Thank you.